I don't really like. I don't like to do this, but all right. Well, I don't like. I don't. Wait. Let me try again. Hey, how's it going?
Functioning.
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 Examples of functioning. Navigational sensors aren't functioning. Glad to see you still fully functioning.
See this part? All of it starting right now. It's going in.
This is going in. Why would this go in?
I just
It's
press play
insane
and
that
then I
it's
don't
going
cut.
in.
I sometimes I'll cut it if it's just like if
If there's anybody, if any of the like 30 people that listen to this are interested in learning how to edit, and you're not very good, that's perfect. That's who we're looking for because we need someone to edit these.
no,
This
no.
can't. I can't. This can't go in.
We can't do that. This is great. We don't. I'm not going to give someone else my baby. I'm going to edit this in. Oh my gosh.
This is a very uncarved block of you.
That's what I like about it. We are a podcast about honesty. And why would I want to why would I want to give them this like hyper produced product when it could be just this very natural thing?
Yeah, but editing isn't like lying.
I mean, I make sure the sound's okay, the masters are okay, but I don't cut really anything out. Every burp, we had in Asia's episode, we had that little interruption by the pup. That's in there.
Yeah,
that's in there. It's charming. It's charming. It's charming.
Well, we don't want to give the
aesthetic.
false impression that we have a studio or anything like that.
Yeah,
so.
I want them to know that this is very like dirt cheap podcast, and it will remain that way the whole way because it is the mission of this podcast is to it's artistic radical honesty, Tom. It's artistic radical honesty.
Well, speaking of radical honesty,
radical candor.
Radical candor.
Yeah.
Where are y'all right now?
I'm sitting here with Jason Bender, my jiu-jitsu coach. Tom, this is Jason. Jason, this is Tom.
Hello, Jason.
Nice to meet you.
And we are at his apartment, which has a lot of wicker and plants. It's really beautiful in here. I'm a huge fan of wicker. I don't know if you knew that.
I feel like it's come up.
It doesn't come up naturally a lot, but this is a good opportunity for me to
tend to come up
express it.
naturally, but you find a way to make it come up unnaturally, which is fine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Thanks for being here, Jason. I appreciate you being here. I've heard a lot about you, so welcome to Functioning.
Thanks. Yeah, this place is nice because my wife is well. First of all, she had good credit when we met, so that is one of the only ways I was able to get in on the condo tip. And two, she's a very talented interior designer, so that has its obvious advantages in a living situation. Whereas I would be, when she met me, she came to my apartment once and she was like, never coming back here. And I'm like,
really?
Yeah.
How bad was it?
It wasn't that bad. Her standards are pretty high. It was very typical, bachelor guy who was at the gym and partying. Those two things,
So just like movie posters pinned directly to the wall.
No, nothing on the walls at all. I did not.
Nothing.
Just total aesthetic out there.
No,
yeah.
If it didn't serve the purpose of gym or partying, then it wasn't a thing I was interested in. And putting up posters didn't have a.
You didn't
a
like
place for that.
find like a cool like beer keg box that you like tear it apart and then put that on the wall. I've seen that happen a couple of times. That was really like early 20s.
That's
aesthetic.
That's pretty dirtbag. I like it.
Yeah.
It's very Motley Crue.
See, that's what we're trying to capture by not editing this stuff out. Is this dirtbag aesthetic that we're going for?
I think that if everybody would embrace their inner dirtbag a little bit, but not too much. Of course, that's where you got the Zen balance of life, right? But it's know when to be the dirtbag and how to make that dirtbag happy. But not be full on dirtbag.
Choose the right time. I think we talk about that on this podcast a lot.
Your dirtbag should make you be the person that goes, let's go to the county fair, but not work at it.
Yeah. Moderation.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. I think that my inner dirtbag really wants to work at the county fair, but you got to find the balance of somebody in your life. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, someone to pull you out of the counter, to pull you across the counter at the county fair. Yeah, to kind of take you on the ride, pull you into the line instead of like operating the machine itself.
You made me think of this. I just had a conversation with my girlfriend. It was either today or yesterday, but she said, "Isn't this nice?" And she was talking about the sheet that's now on my bed. And I didn't have a sheet for a long time, and I was going, "Yeah, I guess this is fine." I didn't really think that I could have a sheet, honestly. And so just trying to explain to somebody that you're always allowed to have a sheet. Just not sure why you wouldn't give yourself a sheet.
I don't have a sheet.
You should have a sheet. It's pretty good.
It's just another thing to put on my bed. Like when I make my bed. It's because
I told her. That's what I told her, and she did not appreciate that answer. So,
oh man,
yeah.
Many hours of my life have now been revolved around the topic of a duvet or a duvet cover. Putting a duvet cover back on.
Yeah, I will never buy a duvet because putting a duvet cover on is fucking. I would much rather.
But the blanket that the duvet is in is definitely like one of those things where I'm like. Our bed is super comfortable and our bedding is super comfortable and she's put work into that. And so it's been kind of worth it. So not kind of like
it's about, I guess it's
definitely worth it to have a duvet.
This is a lesson in self-worth, like investing into your relaxation.
Yeah.
I was telling my girlfriend that like for so long, even when in my early 20s, what I used as my sheet, my blanket, my duvet, all of it, like 3-in-1, was a sleeping bag that I just unzipped, and that was my blanket.
Well, that's what we would all do if we did not have a partner. Like we are incomplete at all times, and those of us that are able to find someone lucky enough to partner up with that can fill that yin to that yang. That's where it's at, because it's impossible to expect that perfection, and that's going to just drive you nuts. Because, of course, while self-improvement is pretty vital to your existence and happiness, there's also that place of being okay with who you are, and that's, I find, one of the toughest. That's way tougher. It's way tougher to get somebody to feel good about who they are than it is to motivate them to be better. It's way easier. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It's like, instead of getting better at like a skill, I'm guessing, versus anything like respecting yourself.
It's so much easier to motivate someone to do the thing to get better than it is to get them to stop and go, "Hey, you did a great job today." No, I didn't. I mean, trust me, 20 years of telling people every day, even if they have a bad workout, that if that's a good workout because you didn't do as much weight as last time. Maybe you couldn't, whatever it is, you felt bad. But working through, you freaking came here and did the thing. So guess what? That's probably a better day than the day that you got in lifting. Let's make it lifting terms since it's measurable. Your PR of whatever that is, right? So your PR days are great. Sure. Whatever that is. Your victory days. But coming in on those days where you didn't even want to come in, those are the days you really earned that trophy, that PR, that whatever that is.
Because that's when discipline really rears its face.
And our ego tells us the opposite. Oh man, today I got my ass kicked. My training partners just beat me all over the mat. Not a good day. I probably went backwards. And in reality, 9 times out of 10, that day made you a lot better. It exposed your weaknesses. It gave you your toughness. It at minimum gave you a minute to go, I can survive that. I survived that. I woke up tired. I didn't even feel like going. Yeah, everybody kicked my butt, but I'm alive. I did it. I know what it feels like to have your butt kicked on a day when you're at your most exhausted, but.
Well, it's so much easier to convince yourself that something's missing inside you than it is you can like see a goal and I can go after that and attain that. But to your point, it's so hard to just sit down and go, woof, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Like that's such an, like the body, the human mind really needs to grab onto something. And being able to sit with yourself and just accept that things are okay. It's almost like not tangible enough.
Well, we're taught that any expression of your own self-worth is arrogance or whatever, right? So to say, yeah, I did a good job. Thanks, man. I mean, first of all, let's be honest. It sounds weird. It does sound weird. Mm-hmm. You know, imagine going up to a philanthropist who built all the schools and funded everything. You really changed the world. What would that person say? Oh, my team did it. And no, I just got lucky and all this. They like almost everyone would. But do you imagine the person's like, yeah, I did. That's why I put my name on the buildings. Pretty awesome. It sounds, but they're not wrong. And then why can't they feel good about that? If you did a good thing, I mean, yes, with tact, you probably wouldn't want to do that in an interview. But letting people know that, hey, I am pretty proud of the hard work I put in. Yes, I had the help of many people along the way, but slipping that little sentence in there, I don't think hurts anybody, but it actually can help others be able to say that, oh, wow, a person can say, but usually it's the other way. Usually it's all the way to the other end where you have the Conor McGregors going, yeah, I'm the baddest MFer around, and da-da-da-da-da, and it sounds douchey because it is. Because then you're going too far the other way, right? That yin-yang.
I remember one time you were doing belt promotions and you promoted someone everyone was like, speech, speech, speech. And he held up the belt and he sort of started his speech to start thanking everyone. And then he stopped and he was like, actually, I did this. And then he went on to be like, and thank you. I can't remember his name right now. But yeah, and I think about that a lot. I think about how it was just like recognizing his own effort, his own progress, and like showing a bit of pride in public to a whole group of people. And we were all about it because that's kind of, that's the vibe of the gym. Yeah. And I don't know, I'd never really seen anything like that. Like even when Tom and I did comedy, you could kill. And then you get off and everyone's like, man, good set. And you're like, oh yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, thank you so much. Like you kind of go in so gracious because you can't come out and be like, I fucking blew the roof off. Because then you'll sound like Conor McGregor doing comedy probably, which would be terrible.
Yeah, well, you want to like shrink down. That was a big thing in Atlanta. Like all the comics would like get lower if they were being given praise. Yeah. Like it's this weird false humility of like, please stop. I just want you to stop giving me accolades or anything. Like, I don't want to recognize my own self-worth in this moment. Yeah. Please like take the eyes off me. That's not helping anybody.
Yeah, it's horrifying, really, to just have everyone shaking your hand like, man, you did so good. And you're just like, okay, thanks. I'm going to go hide in the bathroom and have like an anxiety attack.
I don't do it at every single class, but I did it with the little kids every once in a while. And then I did it a few times with the adults, and I should do it more often, where I make the little kids give yourself a high five. You did great, right? And then I did it as a kind of a joke. I mean, just whatever, with the adults, and I was like, I think that had a good effect. I should probably do it more often because we should. It was fun. It makes me think of. I grew up loving pro wrestling, and I was an '80s kid, so there was a golden era for pro wrestling. Even the tomato cans. Do you know what the phrase tomato can is?
No.
Tomato can is in fighting, what you would have like a squash match. If it was real boxing, it was to pad the champs or the person on the way up's record. They would fight this journeyman who they were guaranteed to beat, but it's experience and time and to pad the record. Well, in pro wrestling, it's the same thing where they have these squash matches, and the tomato can would be this local wrestler, Hulk Hogan versus Jim Smith, right? It doesn't matter. But there were a few of these guys who probably never won a match, hardly ever in their pro wrestling history, who got beat by every big name on the way up. And there's a few of them and they even let them have their own little personality. Like the Brooklyn Brawler, like was a guy who never won a match, but had personality, right? There's a guy named Barry Horowitz, and he had, even after a while, they let him get his own t-shirt with a hand print on the back. And his gimmick was he patted himself on the back before matches, and then he would lose. And I couldn't help it. I'm like, I love this guy. I freaking love this guy because he goes into, because a lot of times in pro wrestling, the guy in the corner, like Jim Smith, he's like, and that's all he did when they called his name. You know, this guy had some personality. He's like, oh, yeah, look at me, how great I am. And he was going to lose every time. And I'm like, this guy, because I knew, I knew at a certain point even before it came out that it was scripted or whatever. But I was like, I didn't care. I love the theatrics. I was like, this guy knows he's going to lose. And he just comes in every time and I'm like, because he's right. Come on, pat yourself on the back. This guy had made a career off of losing, but yet put his own personality and spin and made it more entertaining for the crowd, and that really had an effect on me. It's like the Rocky one. I don't have to win. I just got to finish. You don't have to win. You don't have to win. Sorry, we're gonna have an anxious elderly Chihuahua.
There's Gibbs. A Chihuahua just walking all over our wires.
Gibbs is a special dog. We got him at the pound, at Paws, and he's been a handful for 12 years, but and now he's got dementia, and he runs around and just roams around. Then he'll get stuck in a random corner, and I have to pull him out of the corner. But sorry.
So did professional wrestling in the 80s, which I never told you this, but my uncle was a professional wrestler.
No way.
In the early 90s.
Yeah.
Is that the Munkle?
No, that's a different uncle. This uncle married into the family. He was part of a set of twins. They were like a tag team wrestlers, and they were called the Cole Twins.
Okay.
So I went to a couple of matches.
Nice.
And I saw like Hulk Hogan and stuff like that because he like wrestled with them. I don't know how long that they did it, but so you started watching professional wrestling. Is that what got you into martial arts?
That and martial arts movies, both. Yeah, it was just like that was the only two things I really cared about as a little kid. Oh yeah, I mean they were the best. There was also kung fu theater I would watch with my dad on the couch, and there was this thing for a while in the old Shaw Brothers movies and stuff where at the end the good guy would stomp the bad guy on the ground in the guts, and the blood would spurt out, and we would wait, yes, and if they didn't do that, we'd be like, he just whatever. But then when we got to see the stomp to the gut and the blood spurt up, me and my dad were like at the peak of father-son bonding. Yes, the bad guy got stomped to death. But all those movies were all like about, especially the Shaw Brothers stuff. A lot of them were about like oppression and stuff. I mean, they were cheesy as hell. But they slipped some messages in there. The Bruce Lee kicking the sign off, the racist sign down, and stomping it. I mean,
the Chinese not allowed or something.
Yeah. He slipped some stuff in there when he didn't have to. He could have just been like, I look good with my shirt off and I kick fast. And people think I'm the best martial artist ever.
My biggest inspiration, I really love Jackie Chan. So it's a different vibe than Bruce Lee. Not so more slapstick than martial arts, but still work.
But very creative. That's the idea, right?
Yeah. I love the creativity and the theatrics of Jackie Chan, and who doesn't love
some choreography?
Who doesn't love Jackie flips. Chan? I like the more realistic stuff, and as it went along, and I could find
the blooper reel at the end of the movie.
The more realistic made me. Is really where I went. And then when the UFCs came out, I was like, that's it. This is the thing. Because I would literally do that as a kid. I found out through the bookmobile that came to town, which was the like mini bus that the guy would drive from our county seat to our hometown. Because our hometown didn't have a library when I was a kid. Brought back martial arts books, and I was like, oh, there's more different martial arts, and they have different specialties and stuff. I would take in my notebook and write down, what if a kung fu guy back then it was like kung fu, karate, judo, taekwondo, and those were the ones that we could find books on really. And I'd be like, how would that work out? And have my He-Man characters and fight the pro wrestlers and have different tournaments. And then I'm like, in the 90s, they were like, somebody came up to me at the factory and goes, there's these VHS tapes where they take these guys and they fight in a ring or fight in a cage. There's no rules. And I'm like, I'm listening. Never went back.
Most sentences that start, there's these VHS tapes, don't change your life so significantly.
Or they do for the worse.
Yeah, exactly. They don't so positively, I guess I should say.
There's never a positive change with VHS tapes.
Yeah, the joke is with us martial artists who were, who took some of the more traditional martial arts as kids. You're like, to watch the UFCs and the EFs, the EFCs, the IVCs. I'm trying to think of the other organizations that were doing these fights. To get them on VHS, you'd have to go back into the beaded curtain. And then there's some creepy guy who's like, you're like, oh, no, you do your thing, bro. No judgment, And then you go over here and you find the tapes with like a guy smashing another guy and all this stuff. And you're like, this is the stuff.
So when did you start? What was your first martial arts?
It was a guy that came to town and taught Wado Ryu. Wado Ryu is, again, I barely remember the specifics, but I believe it's just in the karate branch. So all different martial arts, it just becomes branches. So this guy wanted his own style of karate, And then you find out in the end that it's mostly the same stuff. And people want to argue about specifics and all this.
The body picky. Can only move so many ways.
Bingo. Yeah. One of the coolest things I've ever heard anybody say, and I've repeated this, and I try to give him props, is Benjamin Salas is a really interesting martial artist out of Wisconsin. One of those, like, I don't know exactly what he did, he'll post a picture once in a while of him in, special forces gear, and like, I used to do cool shit. And I'm like, so a guy I really respect, and he's always been super nice, super, super nice guy. And he said that if you walk by people doing martial arts, if you freeze frame it, every martial artist should think they're doing their martial art. Because, again, just like you said, the human body only moves so many ways. Your stance should be very similar and all this stuff. In effective martial arts, people should be able to say, they're doing judo. Oh, they're doing boxing because it looks the same for moments in time, I think is what he was getting at when he said that.
It's recognizable.
Yeah. So shout out to Benjamin Salas up in Wisconsin. Carlson Gracie black belt.
Nice.
So you got how old were you when you were like?
Oh yeah.
Into it?
So I don't know, maybe 10, and then I got trained with this guy for like 2 years, if that. I don't know. And then I played football in high school, and during that time there was a guy who taught karate at a town next door. I would bop in there every once in a while, but I wasn't able to fully commit and everything. And plus my goals were not like sport karate kind of stuff and all this. I was like, all I wanted to do was spar. That's all I ever wanted to do was just spar. And he was like, no, it's not the jam. And then, but I got some experience doing that. He humored me a few times. And then right after high school, I signed up for the Marine Corps Reserves, went to boot camp, went to infantry training, came home and worked at the local factory, married my high school sweetheart. 6-9 months later, we annulled that marriage because that was just a terrible idea we both agreed upon. Ironically, I hate country, but like the country song, I took the truck, she took the car. And then right then, as we were split up, the guy that ran the karate school in the town next door there, Mr. Franz, one of his black belts was my dear friend Sean Hatlevig. Still friends with him to this day. Love that person deeply. He was like, hey, Mr. Franz wants to know if you wanted to do one of those UFC fights. And I was like, yes, absolutely. And so with hardly any training, I went in. I've told this story in other podcasts, so I don't want to, bore people with it too much. But I go
your
in.
Fans? You don't want to bore your fans with the same story?
Fans. But, I go into this fight. I didn't have fight shorts. I wore jean shorts. And the guy across from me had Muay Thai. Yeah, the guy across. They were black, at least I believe, if I remember correctly. And the guy across from me was his coach was a UFC fighter, Chris Lytle, who is if you ask anybody, like in the Midwest, he was our UFC
I don't even
fighter.
follow UFC, and I know that name.
Chris Lytle is a bad man in a good way, right? And he trained a bunch of fighters. Standing across from me was one of his students and training partners in Muay Thai shorts. And I was like, I just remember my buddy, who was my corner man, who was a brown belt in karate, but like knew nothing about Muay Thai, fighting, boxing, anything. I just remember him looking at me, and he just goes, "Man, he looks like he knows what he's doing." And I was like, "No, yeah, I guess, yeah."
So were they jeans cut down to shorts?
No.
Or they were the kind that you buy in shorts?
Bought jorts? You bought them.
Fight jorts.
Well, they were just what I
shorts.
wore at the time, my friend. That was what we all wore in Northwest Ohio in 1997, 8, whatever it was.
I think it was
the style. It's like the best style of short you can wear.
It's 3 dirtbags on a podcast. I think that's
exactly. I am not allowed to buy those anymore. My one of the stipulations of my marriage is I am no longer allowed to wear any kind of jean short.
I think Fight Jorts could be a really popular brand.
Well, here's what you guys don't know.
Fight Jorts, they have like a dry wicking, but it's still denim and it still looks like shit. And they're very wide.
Is a merch idea. We'll talk about this later. So how'd your fight go?
Oh, terribly. Absolutely terribly. No, I mean, got my tooth knocked out of my head. Well, okay, here's exactly what happened.
If you want your tooth
knocked out. That's also happened to me while wearing jorts.
Yeah. Hey, if you haven't gotten your tooth knocked out but while wearing jorts, you're not a dirtbag.
Yeah. You're not really wearing jorts.
So just like anything else that has required me to face my fear and do things like talk in front of people, or in freshman basketball, shoot the one basket of the season that my teammates set me up for. Everything was black. And then someone had I kind of came to kind of thing where when the ref said go, I don't have a memory. The next memory I had was the referee separating us because I had been punching him, and it looked like it was over. Like, when a referee steps in and pulls you off, it should be over. And so I kind of jumped up in the green corner, started cheering, like the pro wrestling dork that I was. And I was like, this is it. I freaking won this thing. And then the referee came over after a little bit and said, go. And I'm like, what do you mean go? What do you mean go? Like, that was over. And well, it didn't matter. It was the Wild West. We were in a gutted out mall in Fort Wayne, Indiana, doing an unregulated thing, at a time when no one had any idea what was going on. And
Tom, didn't you do a show there on your tour?
Yeah, I was about to say Fort Wayne is one of my favorite places.
Are you being sarcastic?
Was it?
No, not at all.
Seriously? Why do you love Fort Wayne?
It's a great comedy city, and I believe I was there. I think that I was in Fort Wayne when I went to a Juggalo bar. So I also had I've had great experiences in Fort Wayne.
Oh, you want to go full dirtbag? We can tell that story.
A lot of jean shorts.
I've been to an ICP show.
I am not surprised, even remotely.
When ICP first came around, my friend Jim Muir, again, still friends with this guy, I love him. He goes, check these guys out. This is hilarious. And we knew it was absolutely ridiculous. And it was my first non-Christian concert. So when people say, what's your first concert? I'm like, well, technically they were at churches and stuff. Technically, if I don't want to. But my first real concert was an ICP show. And there was only I don't know, if I'm going to throw a number out, it seemed like only 200 people, if that. And, it was hilarious. It was hilarious. We knew it was ridiculous. And we're like, yeah, we're going to see where those people are in 20 years. And we're like, here we are covered in Faygo and being all judgmental. Look at those freaking losers. I was in the front row. And then later on, as they become the Juggalos, I was like, and then I became friends with a guy who was the sound tech for them, my friend Mike. He has quite a few stories about being the sound tech at the gathering for, I don't want to put a number on it because I don't know, it's his story to tell how many years he did the gathering. And yeah, he has some stories.
I would go to the gathering. When we were doing comedy, trying to get it booked at the gathering was like a common goal for a lot of the guys that we knew.
I mean,
Max was really pushing for it.
Max I think, is going to press packet to the gathering.
Yeah, he did. He'll be on the podcast later. Yeah.
I mean, if you do well, hey, money's money, and making people happy that are, maybe, they're, again, it's hard to hate on the juggalos because you're punching down.
They grabbed an audience.
And,
they knew what they were doing.
Well, I think maybe I'm speaking for myself, but wearing jorts, huffing as many whippets as I have no reason to judge the juggalos.
Same.
No,
they're my people.
I know.
I used to do a bit where I was like, I'm attracted to juggalette women, and I don't really know what to do about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I am definitely like, if we're like ranking humans on a scale, I'm definitely closer to becoming a juggalo than I am to, say, like the president.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Well, definitely. I mean, we could all be juggalos by 3 p.m. today.
Absolutely. We should just shift the whole podcast to a juggalo podcast.
My wife has a lot of makeup.
Let's do it. They are.
There it is. Yeah.
I don't think there are. I don't know how many juggalo podcasts there are compared to recovery podcasts.
It would be ironic if there were quite a few. That should be, again, fact check. But we should name your imaginary fact check person.
What do you mean imaginary?
Oh, fair enough.
They're here. I just need to hire them. So back to the actual core of the podcast, which is recovery. How did martial arts and this like idea of like discipline and kind of managing and moderation affect your recovery?
Oh man, where are we going with that? It's like,
or how did ICP speak to you in your recovery?
Drank Fago and you were ready to go back to the church.
Fago beer go.
Okay, so how far back do we want to go with this? Because
the beginning of the universe.
I am not a naturally disciplined person. My upbringing was by teenagers. Literally, my mom was 19, my dad was 17. Both of them exceptional amounts of mental health issues that equaled probably should not have had a child before lots of therapy. But so I wasn't exactly seeing great examples of discipline other than seeing my dad push through never calling into work as much as possible, even when he would work third shift and go to the bar and then come home at 11, whatever it was, and still trying to be a dad as much as possible, so, and then mom, I remember her trying, she would work at a place for a handful of months and then quit for all of her reasons, any reason, pick it, to not work. So not exactly a lot of discipline around to watch. I really thought growing up, I was like, oh man, these guys that I see being really good at the sports, they're so lucky, they're talented. And then in high school, again, this is on my little blogs. I have little blog posts on my page if you want to read this, but our church had a deacon, Shorty Payton, and he was like, well, you should put him in football. And my mom's like, he is tiny. He is, even in school, it was like a lot of the girls were bigger than me. You know what I mean? I'm still not a big dude, but then I was like uncoordinated. I never liked, anything that was physical. I was not natural at doing the stuff. I was always like, I was always kind of the scared kid. I don't want to climb on stuff and don't like pain. Don't like being uncomfortable. I like video games and books. And, but he was like, hey, come here and look at my son. And he showed a bunch like this, you know, pictures and all this inside of a thing. And showed his son, like, got awards, and he's like, look how small he is. He was your size in 8th grade, and he started lifting weights and da da da. So I went and started lifting weights, and I liked lifting weights because, boy, talk about immediate gratification when you're a teenage boy who's already filled with anger and then, you know, broken homes and everything. Oh, I can take metal plates and push them away from my body, or pull them in violently, or pick it up violently. Hell yeah. What's up? And then I could see those numbers just keep going up. And then I never got good at football, but at least it was a way of, you know, I had something positive to channel towards that did make some discipline where I would, you know, I got a lot. The word heart always gets thrown around when people work out with me, because if I do get to the gym, when I do, which, you know, I can make myself do it, of course, boy, I'm going to get down with the get down. You know, I'm going to try really hard. You know, if you're the fastest guy, I'm going to be coming after you, but I'm just going to see your butt the whole time, but I'm going to be trying to come after you like you're on fire. And, yeah, like I played football, and then played freshman basketball, got cut from basketball, went out for track, got told, you know, the track coach looked at me and said, Jason, what are you going to do? What event are you going to do? We'll have you on the team, but what event are you going to do? It's your senior year.
Very,
you know?
track coach thing to
do.
Yeah.
Hey, I thank him for doing
We'll find you a spot.
You know, so, and my high school was small. I graduated with 55 people. So it was like, that's the only way I even made the football team, was they were like, we have 22 young men on this team. You know, and I was one of the older ones then, and I just kind of made my way up. I would not have made the team anywhere else. But that gave me a chance to build some leadership skills and build discipline that way that I understood. They gave me a program to follow of do this lifting program on Monday, do this one on Tuesday, do this one on Wednesday, do this one on Thursday, do this one on Friday. And then I started following that, and then went to college. And while I was at college, it was, as much as possible, I would go train at Mr. Hess's Muay Thai school. And on Fridays, he'd let us throw down mats and try to do jiu-jitsu with the guy who knew bare minimum, you know, bless his heart. But he got his blue belt from Hoist Gracie at seminars and stuff. And it was tough because I, you know, going to school full time, working. I was delivering newspapers in the middle of the night. Like, I'd wake up at like 3:30 or 4 a.m., deliver newspapers, and either take a quick nap, or just go, you know, work on, you know, any kind of school project, or go to a class, and then, you know, repeat that throughout the day. And then at night, a lot of, you know, 3 or 4 days a week, I was working at this convenience store. So talk about burning at all 4 ends. And then at first I was pretty disciplined, where I was like, I didn't want to party. I didn't want to drink, anything like that. And then the girlfriend that I lived with freshman year, we both slowly started getting more into, wow, partying's fun. And she was going to grad school, so she had a little more freedom, because, you know, they're taking basically two classes, but they're working harder in those classes, kind of thing. At least hers was. I don't know. I ended up dropping out. But so the balance of discipline there was good for a while, until Bowling Green really showed what can make a Midwest town really fun. And then started partying pretty hard there at the end, and lost the discipline. When the worst thing that happened to my partying was I got accepted to be an RA, because, you know, again, I wasn't partying a ton then. I was partying on a weekend every once in a while. But when I became an RA, and I was, you know, 21, 22, and I was living in a dorm. It was the devil inside of a playground. It was ridiculous. It was, they asked me not to come back for the second semester. Understandably so.
Wow.
But I actually looked at her and said, worth it. So I'm just going to leave it at that it was a really good time that I probably shouldn't have had, but who knows? Maybe because I had such a good time for a while that like now I'm like, I don't need to. That's part of what has helped my recovery is I feel like I beat the video game. I'm like, I had a really good time. And people don't want to talk about that. You don't ever hear people talk about that when they're in these recovery conversations. It's always like, oh man, I crapped my pants so many times and I stole from my grandmother and and embarrassment. We tell all the embarrassing stories, but I think maybe I'm wrong. And again, everybody's journey is different. And if this triggers you in any way, then fast forward me. But for me, it helps that I had the best time. Like, again, I feel like I finished the book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not going to get any more fun after that. And I pushed a little further where there was a few things that were not good. Yeah. Who hasn't spent a night in jail because you got rowdy at a bar? Maybe that happened to me once, right?
I would love to go to AA and be like, yeah, it was sick.
It was sick. Now, here's my suggestion to everyone here. If you're not here because you feel like you didn't have a good enough time yet, maybe it's not time for you to be here. Whoa, get that guy out of here.
All right, maybe we should get an editor.
I did not mean that, by the way. But
I appreciate what you're saying because I've had a few different conversations with my girlfriend she's been nice enough to say like, I really appreciate that you don't drink because it makes everything a little bit easier. Like I know we can get home and all this. And it's been occasionally where I've said, yeah, I don't really need to because I know what it is. I know what a hangover feels like enough to know that I'm good.
Been there, done that kind of feeling. Yeah.
That's just an interesting perspective that you're right. I don't think gets brought up a lot, mostly because of the reasons that we've given, where like
you don't want to glorify
an AA meeting and saying, "Get out of here, guys! You're not done.
You haven't partied enough. Did you go to jail yet? You don't know. You don't belong here."
Yeah, but it's. I think that's what part of the conversation that Jody and I have had on this podcast, and just in general, where you don't really know when you've had enough, or like what your problem is. Because Jody, you've mentioned this a couple times, where like someone comes up to you and says, "You're the life of the party," and that's you would respond to that saying, "That's the problem."
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, I just appreciate that's an interesting perspective to have.
Yeah, like we had too much fun. That's why I tend to tell people that I didn't really have a drinking problem as much as I had a hangover problem.
Yeah, right.
Because my hangovers fucking killed me. But like I wasn't like, the idea of a lot of alcoholics out there is like culturally is it's like the guy who gets in a fight and like ruins everyone's time, or like they like pass out in the middle of the wedding and like pee in the middle of the wedding because they've been drinking the whole time, or like, or like the drunk guy like sleeping in the gutter, which I've done several of those things that I just listed, but also like I had a lot of fun.
Same.
And I wouldn't be considered myself like a bad drunk. If anything, I was a great drunk. I mean, I could drive perfectly. I mean, I don't know. No, it's not verified. But
I always got home.
Somehow. But the morning after, I would be personally, I would have my own bad time alone. And that was the shit that just was like unbearable.
Yeah. Hangovers got me sober for sure. I'm a migraine sufferer, which is why kind of today, if I've been pawing at my head, I have a little bit of a headache today. And so especially when it was like really hard partying ones, where it's like, got some drugs in you. Oh, those hangovers were the worst. My migraines, that scale of 1 to 10 were like 15s, just ridiculous.
Yeah, unbearable. You can't do anything all day except wait to go drinking. It was just the
worst.
I mean, that's all you could do. That's the only thing that's going to make it better is to go back to the bar.
Yeah, I've been feeling sick all day. I need to go relax at the bar.